Live. What is going on? We are live here. This is James Bell of the Boxing Source, and this is the Midweek Report on Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. Just going to go through, a few things in the boxing world that's, going on. Looking ahead to the action that's supposed to be at the MGM National Harbor, and then also, at the theater, Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. So, I'm just going to be, going through that here in a bit. Just wanted to see about, getting a couple of groups to be notified of this live video. And then we're going to go into a few topics here. So, also wanted to see about trying to get a guest on. They were invited to join this particular live, but we'll have to see if they'll be able to get on. As I was contacted kind of last minute in reference to them being on. But not necessarily sure if they will be able to join. But in the meantime, wanted to go through a few things within the sport of boxing. We have, like I said, two events that are happening, one in New York City and another in the Washington, D.C. area, Oxon Hill, Maryland. For New York City at the theater in Madison Square Garden, you're going to have the WBO Featherweight Championship on the line. You're going to have Shakur Stevenson there that is going to, defend his WBO featherweight title there, and he will be facing Miguel Mariaga. So, the fight there that you're going to have with Shakur Stevenson and Miguel Mariaga, that is going to be Stevenson's first defense of that WBO featherweight title. He won it against Joet Gonzalez last year, with it, being vacated by Oscar Valdez. So, now Shakur Stevenson is going to, face Miguel Mariaga. Mariaga had his, fights against Oscar Valdez and Vasily Lomachenko, and also Nicholas Walters, where he succumbed in those world title, um, world title attempts. So, the the thing there is that we're going to see what Shakur Stevenson is going to do in this particular matchup. Going to see if he's going to be, impressive against Miguel Mariaga, and then see what happens with him, later on down the line. Um, the featherweight division does have, of course, the champions there: Gary Russell Jr., Josh Warrington, Kanzu, and Leo Santa Cruz. And we know that Leo Santa Cruz is up there in the super featherweight division, even though he still currently holds titles there at featherweight. But uh, this particular fight is going to be interesting because you're going to have your Stevenson making this defense, and there is another fight that is scheduled a few days later, St. Patrick's Day. You're going to, have, Mick Conlan be in a fight that will be scheduled for March 17th against Belmar Preciado. Mick Conlan is the top ranked contender in the WBO rankings. So, if Shakur Stevenson and Mick Conlan get through their particular bouts, then that may be ordered about the WBO to take place. There was talk about, potentially having Shakur Stevenson fighting Josh Warrington in a unification bout, but Josh Warrington didn't necessarily go forward with that particular fight. Um, people thought it was pretty much on the side of Shakur Stevenson, but what we later found out was that Josh Warrington was in the middle of changing promotional companies and ended up with Matchroom Boxing, and now you're going to see Josh Warrington have a fight later on down the line, maybe against Can Xu, the WBA regular champion, um, to see if that fight is going to, I guess, be a unification of sorts, because the WBA super champion at featherweight is Leo Santa Cruz, and he, is there as the super champion at super featherweight as well. So he may end up, you know, forfeiting that super title. So you may have Can Xu versus Josh Warrington for the IBF featherweight championship in the vacant. It would be vacant WBA Super Championship at the featherweight division. Um, so you would have that matchup going down there at featherweight. But like I said, Shakur Stevenson there to defend his WBO featherweight championship against Miguel Mariaga. You have the fight shaping out. They're also at featherweight Jesse Magdaleno, who is also, in the rankings at WBO. He's currently ranked number 4. Um, he will be part of this fight card, going up against Zakaria Lucas, who is there at 23-0. So um, that's going to be another, bout to look at there as the co-feature bout. You have, a series of guys that are undefeated that will be featured in this fight card as well, like Edgar Berlanga, John Bauza, Frederick Hulan, and Matthew Gonzalez. So that's kind of like what we have as far as like the particular schedule that's happening within the theater at Madison Square Garden, scheduled for Saturday, March 14th. So you do have that over at the Madison Square Garden Theater. You will also, have a fight card that is at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, and that will be headlined by the return of James Kirkland. He will be there at middleweight. Um, he has had a couple of fights, uh, within the past 5 or 6 months or so, but you know, most notably had that bad loss to Canelo Alvarez over in Houston, where he got battered and knocked out, and he hadn't been in the ring for 4 years. But now he had a return in 2019, had a couple of fights, and now they have him at the MGM National Harbor against Mark Anthony Hernandez. So you're going to have James Kirkland going up against Mark Anthony Hernandez there. Kirkland at 34 wins and 2 losses. Mark Anthony Hernandez at 14 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. You're going to have also in the co-feature bout Amantis Stanionis going up against Justin Deloach. You had, you know, Justin Deloach who, fought uh, the likes of Nate Gallimore, Jason Rosario, current unified super welterweight champion, and Terrell Williams. So they are, putting Justin Deloach up there against Mantis Stanionis, and you're going to have Kobia Soldier Breedy going up against Eugene Lagos in the opening bout. Should be planned for the opening bout for the telecast that they have there on Fox Sports 1 at the MGM National Harbor. So Kobia Soldier Breedy, undefeated, featherweight 15-0, been a guest on the Boxing Source radio show multiple times. I've had interviews with Kobia Soldier Breedy multiple times. We had him and his trainer, Coach Floyd Seymour, on the last podcast that we had on Sunday. So he's going to be out there and see if he's going to have an impressive victory at the MGM National Harbor against Eugene Lagos. And this is something there with Kobia Breedy. I mean, he's, here in the Washington, D.C. area. So he's trying to, get some fights in, get some notoriety, and build a following within the Washington, D.C. area. We've had, multiple fighters that have, built themselves up here in Washington, D.C. You have the WBC featherweight champion, Gary Russell Jr., and his brothers that are, currently undefeated. Both his brothers are undefeated right now. And you have, Jared Hurd, who was, former unified super welterweight champion. You have the Peterson brothers that's also, been out here. Those are, like the recent guys that have come from the Washington, D.C. area. Also, you have Shakur Stevenson, who, comes back and forth from, Newark, New Jersey to Alexandria, Virginia. So you have a lot of talent, a lot of, well-known guys out there in the Washington, D.C. area. We also have, up and coming in women's boxing, Tiara Brown. Tiara Brown is slated to have a fight on March 28th. So you also look out for Tiara Brown as well in the Washington, D.C. area. But Kobia Breedy from Barbados was part of the Barbados national team before coming up to the Washington, D.C. area. Now he's, building himself with a record of 15-0 now at the featherweight division. And, we'll see if he'll be, positioned to contend for a world title within the next couple of years or so. So that's something that, we'll be, on the lookout for. Other things that I wanted to, go through within the news circles, received word from, Top Rank within the past couple of days. First, you have the bout that was originally scheduled for February 1st. Now is going to be on May 9th. That is Jose Ramirez against Victor Postol. Jose Ramirez will defend his WBC and WBO super lightweight titles against his opponent there in Victor Postol, former WBC super lightweight champion, who, had a unification bout with Terrence Crawford, but ended up losing to Terrence Crawford. Now he has this shot to become a unified world champion once again. This will be at the Save Mart Center in Fresno, California. Jose Ramirez has, had multiple fights at the Save Mart Center, including a couple of fights where he was the WBC super lightweight champion. So now he has his first fight as a unified super lightweight champion against Victor Postol. We've known Postol, like I said, had his win over Lucas Martin Matisse, was a longtime contender for that WBC super lightweight title before it was vacated by Danny Garcia, and that's when you have Victor Postol fight Lucas Matisse for the vacant WBC title, and he was able to defeat Lucas Matisse to win that WBC title. And then, like I said, lost it to Terrence Crawford. Now he has a chance to become, a world champion once again. He also did lose to Josh Taylor. I think it was in 2018. So those are pretty much his, lone losses that he's had in his professional career. So this should be a very good bout that is scheduled for May 9th over at the Sigmar Center in Fresno, California. They're going to have a co-feature bout of Jose Pedraza and Javier Molina. That's going to be a good little slugfest that they're going to have for that particular fight card. So May 9th, you're going to have Ramirez versus Postol, and at the co-feature bout, you're going to have Jose Pedraza against Javier Molina. So that is one thing there from Top Rank side. Also, um, news that was brought up from yesterday, they made a signing of light heavyweight Maxim Vlasov, and that signing pretty much completes what they were planning with a WBO light heavyweight championship tournament. So you're going to have Maxim Vlasov go up against Umar Salamov in one side of the bracket, and on the other side of the bracket, you're going to have Joe Smith Jr. against Eleider Alvarez, former world champion Eleider Alvarez. So the winners of those two bouts will be going against each other for the WBO Light Heavyweight Championship. This is the WBO Light Heavyweight Championship that was vacated by Saul Canelo Alvarez, who won it on November when he defeated Sergey Kovalev. So that is basically what they have set up for that WBO light heavyweight title. They were supposed to have this tournament, I guess, with Gilberto Ramirez, Zurdo Ramirez. They were going to set him up to face Eleider Alvarez, but things didn't necessarily work out between Zurdo Ramirez and Top Rank. In reference to that, remember Zurdo Ramirez was a former WBO champion at super middleweight, and he moved up to light heavyweight. And usually, when you have a world championship at one division and then you move up to the next division, you pretty much have like one interim fight, and then you're pretty much the mandatory for that world title. Or you could immediately fight for the world title. After you've officially moved up. We've had this case happen with Terrence Crawford, as Terrence Crawford was an undisputed super lightweight champion. He moved up to welterweight, then he fought and defeated Joe Horn for the WBO welterweight championship. So here in this case, Gilberto Ramirez was super middleweight champion, moved up to light heavyweight, but wasn't put in a position to fight for the light heavyweight championship. It was that they kind of like put him in there to be in a tournament for the WBO light heavyweight championship. And I guess that and the money wasn't right for him to go forward and face Eleider Storm Alvarez there in that semifinal matchup. So that's what we have here is the thing with Maxim Vlasov versus Umar Salamov on one side and Joe Smith Jr. and Eleider Alvarez on the other side for the tournament that will be for the WBO light heavyweight championship. So you have that going down. Also, on the matchroom side, we have a couple of things there to talk about. First you have the IBF lightweight world title eliminator. That would be Lee Selby against George Kambosos Jr. So that's going to be a good little, good little matchup there for the IBF lightweight title eliminator. The winner becomes the mandatory for the IBF lightweight title. That will be on the line as you're going to have Vasily Lomachenko there is going to try to go for those titles, the IBF title, when he faces newly crowned IBF champion there, Teofimo Lopez, who defeated Richard Comey for that IBF title. So Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, they're planning to fight on May 30th. And like I said, you have Lee Selby and George Kambosos Jr. that is going to be at the Motorport Arena in Cardiff on May 9th. So that's kind of like shaping up what's happening there in the lightweight division. So we're going to see. People are talking about George Kambosos as the guy that could potentially do something in the lightweight division, but we'll see what he is going to be able to do here against Lee Selby. Once he has his fight with Lee Selby, if he's able to win that particular bout, then he will be put into a position to fight for unified titles as the IBF mandatory. So you have that on one end there through Matchroom Boxing. You also had the announcement earlier today that Alexander Usyk and Derek Chisora will fight at the O2 in London on May 23rd. This bout here is, one of those bouts that has been talked about for months. Just that he didn't have a solid date for this particular bout to take place. So now that it's official, we're going to see how these fighters, Alexander Usyk and Derek Chisora, are going to approach this particular fight. Alexander Usyk, of course, is the World Boxing Super Series winner at the cruiserweight division, the first year of the World Boxing Super Series, undisputed cruiserweight champion. Was able to go from that and fight a couple of times before moving up to heavyweight. He did have his heavyweight debut last year, and was able to get a stoppage victory in that. But now he has a clear step up fight against Derek Chisora, veteran there in the heavyweight division. Had his fights against Dylan White, against Carlos Takam, against Artur Spilka, in recent memory. Also had fights against Tyson Fury too. So Derek Chisora is a very, very experienced heavyweight. He has 9 losses, but he's fought, some of the best out there in the heavyweight division, within his particular professional career. So this bout here between Usyk and Chisora is going to be a good little test for Alexander Usyk. He does have boxing skill, but you got to be able to see how you're able to move around in the heavyweight division. Now, he has had fights against heavyweights before in amateur competition or semi-professional competition, but now he's fully fledged in the heavyweight division, and going up against Derek Chisora, that's going to be a big matchup for Alexander Usyk to see where he is in particular when it comes to the heavyweight division. Now, with him being an undisputed champion at cruiserweight, they're trying to position him as a mandatory contender for a world heavyweight championship. So if he defeats Chisora, they may make him the WBO mandatory for the WBO heavyweight championship. So that is why Usyk versus Chisora is a key bout there in the heavyweight division. We know about uh, Anthony Joshua defending his unified championships against Kubrat Pulev, who is currently the IBF mandatory. That's going to be scheduled for June 20th. And that fight will pretty much shape what happens later on down the line in 2020. Of course, you have it was scheduled rematch between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder for the WBC and Ring Magazine championships. They're initially scheduling it for July 18th, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen on July 18th. I'll talk about that a little bit later on down the line in the week. But like I said, with the fight, Alexander Usyk versus Derek Chisora, you're going to see like how Alexander Usyk performs against a very tough, rugged, experienced heavyweight in Derek Chisora, and that's going to be, something there for people to look forward to. One thing I wanted to kind of like get at from last week, you had the Fox telecast that was at the Barclays Center Saturday, headlined by Adam Kalnacki versus Robert Helenius. And that was where, Robert Helenius upset Adam Kalnacki, got the stoppage victory to hand Adam Kalnacki his first loss of his professional career. You had a lot of, fans for Kalnacki there at the Barclays Center, but you also had a good number of people watching this fight on Fox. According to reports here, at the through Boxing Scene through Keith Heidig, said Nielsen Media Research that the fourth round, where Robert Helenius knocked out or stopped Adam Kalnacki, the peak viewership was, at 1.68 million viewers. That's like very good. Like 1.68 million viewers for a fight between Adam Kalnacki and Robert Helenius. Now, Adam Kalnacki is, a up until that particular point, he was an up and coming contender. Like I said, undefeated, had his wins over, Charles Martin, had his win over Gerald Washington, and then the win in the summer that he had against Chris Arreola was one that people talked about immediately after the fight and a couple days after the fight as being one of the biggest like action fights in the heavyweight division in a while. So, with Adam Kalnacki, people wanted to see more from Adam Kalnacki to see if he was going to, get another win and build himself up to contend for a world title. But Robert Helenius was, there in tip-top shape, and was able to, catch Adam Kalnacki with the right hand, and that, did Adam Kalnacki in. And so 1.68 million viewers for that telecast. That's like I said, that's very good. They're having it live on Fox, so you're going to see more of these events on Fox, to where they could showcase many of the fighters within Premier Boxing Champions. So we're going to see, what happens, um, with that. Um, Also, you do have Clarissa Shields that will, you know, fight super welterweight champion Marie Eve DeCare on May 9th. Will be in Flint, Michigan. It will be a unification bout there. So we're going to see how that fight um, comes out. We know about Clarissa Shields as an two-time Olympic gold medalist and an undisputed middleweight champion. So now she will go for another undisputed championship here in this particular instance as she defends her WBC and WBO super welterweight titles, and you're going to have Marie DeCare as the IPF super welterweight champion, and the WBA championship will be also on the line here. So the winner will become the undisputed champion at super welterweight. Um, and we know that Clarissa Shields, calls herself the GOAT. She gets this win, she'll be the, a two division undisputed champion. You know, so that's gonna be, a real big achievement for her. She's able to get that within 11 professional fights. So you're going to have, that on one side. You also, will have as, part of the card on, May 2nd, where you have Dylan White going up against Alexander Povetkin, where uh, Dylan White is going to put up his interim WBC heavyweight championship. You're also going to have there Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano. That will be for the undisputed lightweight championships. So that is, one thing that I kind of like talked about was that fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, trying to be made official. Um, we were trying to see if they were going to have the fight over in New York City, but that didn't come through. So they had to renegotiate and have the fight held over in England. So this is going to be in Manchester Arena as part of the card for um, Dylan White against Alexander Povetkin. So that is going to be a very big fight there as well, with Katie Taylor there at 15-0, and Amanda Serrano with 38 wins, one loss, and one draw. Um, and you know, um, Amanda Serrano is a 7-weight world champion. Like, like that's like what Manny Pacquiao of women's boxing or something like that. But I'm sorry, man. I don't really like Manny Pacquiao all that much. But if Serrano is able to pull off this win, is going to be a very um very big win there for Amanda Serrano. Serrano is, like I said, she has won titles at lightweight before, featherweight titles, super flyweight, super lightweight, that type of thing. So, but here, this is probably one of the um, most competitive bouts that she will be in a while. She did have a great fight with Heather Hardy last September, where she was able to get a unanimous decision win. But this one here with Katie Taylor being a fairly talented, young individual, but did have her issues in June 1st, 2019, against Delphine Persoon. She did get the decision to become the undisputed lightweight champion, but there were a lot of people that were in attendance at Madison Square Garden on June 1st that felt that Delphine Persoon ended up winning that fight. So now you have Katie Taylor going up against a very tough, um, like I said, 7 division world champion, very experienced Amanda Serrano. And people have kind of like had this as a little bit of a revenge fight, so to speak, as Katie Taylor did defeat Cindy Serrano over in the TD Garden in Boston in October of 2018. So that's going to be something where you kind of like have uh, a little bit of animosity of sorts going into this particular fight. So looking forward to that as well. So that's kind of like what I wanted to get through here with this midweek report. Like I said, you have these fights coming up. You have the fight card on Fox Sports One. That has the thing there with James Kirkland. That will be in the feature bout there. So you're going to have, like I said, James Kirkland there versus um, Hernandez, and that will be a 10-round middleweight bout. Like I said, it's going to be on Fox Sports One over at the MGM National Harbor. You will, also have in New York City, Shakur Stevenson defending the WBO featherweight championship against Miguel Mariaga. So that's going to be what we have in store for this weekend. Look forward to those bouts on Saturday night. Should be scheduled to be in attendance for the fight card that's at the Hoodoo Theater at Madison Square Garden. So we're going to be there for that. So follow the Boxing Source on Twitter for updates in reference to that particular card, and then we'll have something here afterwards. Pretty much the post-fight press conference. We'll see if we could get that on, and then after that, we'll have a summary of those bouts over there in the theater at Madison Square Garden, and then also over at the MGM National Harbor. So be sure to check that out. Follow us here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and you'll have the podcast at Sundays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But also will be available on iTunes or Anchor.fm. So that's what I got here for this midweek report on March 11th, 2020. And until the next time, folks, peace out.